All right, let's do this. Thank you. My name is Nikhil Vootkur, and I am so thrilled today to speak for the Wendell Phillips Prize. I want to begin my speech with some thank yous to friends and family, without neither of whom today or any day would be possible, to the professors, faculty, and staff of Tufts University who have dedicated their days to making this place as beautiful, nurturing, and transformative as it truly is, to the incredible other finalists with whom I'm fortunate to share this opportunity today, and finally, perhaps most importantly, to the remarkable, resilient, and tremendously talented Tufts graduating class of 2025, who have knowingly or not entrusted me with the daunting task of representing you all with this speech on this very exciting occasion. Being up here, graduating from Tufts, and sharing this with all of you here today, I am overwhelmed with feelings of great luck and responsibility. And so it is on these notes of luck and responsibility that I wish to focus on today. First, a few moments on luck. Fellow graduates, we are about to join the ranks of an albeit quickly growing, minute fraction of American working-age adults who are privileged enough to hold a college degree. Today, that number is just over 50%. When many of us were born, it was under a quarter. This is to say that as Tufts students and graduates, we truly represent the lucky few. The ones who are given opportunities who culminated in this education today might culminate later in higher education, a feat achieved by only 25% of Americans, and will ensure a sense of economic and social security for all of us. I point to these statistics for two reasons. First, to underscore just how much of a privilege our education is, especially in a nation where higher education seems increasingly demanded of us, but remains non-guaranteed. And second, to recognize just how momentous this occasion and what it represents truly is for all of us. For this insanely perfect storm of luck and, of course, hard work, I'd like to take a moment to congratulate us all. Okay, so we're lucky. The question then is, what are we to do with our fortune? As that lovely quote from Spider-Man goes, with great power, or if I may editorialize, luck, comes great responsibility. So this brings me, of course, to the second part of my speech, about responsibility. As I think more about how I wish to address this and the mission of this prize, which again is to underscore just how a Tufts education might help make the world a better place through constructive civic engagement, I'm brought back to the man for whom this speech is named, Wendell Phillips, who roughly 150 years ago emphasized the inseparability between education and civic duty. I will confess, I did not know much about Mr. Phillips when I was first nominated for this prize. But as I put my Tufts-provided research skills to use, shout out to Jumbo Search, I was able to learn quite a bit about him. But principally, I was most struck by a speech he gave to graduating college students on an early summer's day in 1881, just a few miles away from us, titled "The Scholar in a Republic." An abolitionist activist advocating for the advancement of rights for people of color, Indigenous Americans, and women, Phillips, with great conviction, implored these graduating students to use their education in service of the greater good. Specifically, he argued that, quote, college-bred men fail in Republican duty when they allow others to lead in the agitation of the great social questions which stir and educate the age. These students, with the privilege of an education much like ours today, must become agitators, responsible for, quote, marshaling the conscience of a nation to mold its laws. Agitators who must, quote, tear a question open and riddle it with light. It is these calls to agitate and seek enlightenment through interrogation that fundamentally delineate education as a civically engaged domain. It impels us as college students at Tufts to use our education for the greater good. And ultimately, it draws a bridge between our luck and our duty as students. If we are to take such a claim seriously, and I believe that we should, that our responsibility as scholars is to be agitators, then our call as soon-to-be graduates of Tufts University becomes increasingly clear, which is that it is our vital task to ask questions about the world around us and address them in deeply imaginative ways. Class of 2025, In our 4 or so years, we have belonged to a community of people who have taken up these responsibilities and have taken them up seriously. I want to remind us all today that the work we, across the university, have done here is nothing short of existential in its nature. Whether it be the work of Tuppet in changing the landscape of post-incarceration opportunity, the study of public health amidst a raging global pandemic, the research of Black maternal mortality over at the medical school, inquiries about an increasingly turbulent landscape of international affairs, or the grassroots political activism that students have undertaken in our recent elections. It is clear that at Tufts, we have spent our time here constructing new, more inclusive, and more just worlds for all of us. Though we may have sometimes brushed off the seriousness of our essays and assignments, we might sometimes ask what the point of it all even is, and there exists an impulse or a tendency to dismiss this work as frivolous or divorced from practical matters or divided between theory and praxis. I believe it's especially clear now that scholarship and education are truly world-changing ventures, and that they quite literally demand of us to imagine new worlds. At Tufts, we have grappled with these potentials through the questions that we've asked around seminar tables, the hypotheses we've tested in laboratories, and depictions of the human experience that we've explored on canvases and the written page. But, and we must not forget this imaginative work has significance and gravity outside of the classroom. It threatens to shake up the present arrangements of things and replace them with something newer, more just, more inclusive, more democratic, something more. It is because of these stakes and this seriousness that this work is occasionally met with hostility, the likes of which we have been seeing nationwide. We are witnessing now a threat against scholarship and the proliferation of ideas through research grant cuts and book bans, alongside the regression of many civil rights, including anti-LGBTQ policies, the recent affirmative action rollback, dwindling access to women's reproductive health care, and attacks on diversity initiatives, including universities like ours. But this, of course, again, becomes a question of responsibility, and Tufts has taught us all to do better than be paralyzed in the face of these setbacks. That ultimately, we are too lucky, too resourced, and too responsible to not persist. It was not that long ago that we had ourselves unfortunately witnessed in the winter of 22, a localized version of this hostility against scholarship and justice, when our community was delivered horrible threats of violence simply for engaging in the critical studies of identity. But Tufts community members, in the face of adversity, did not waver. Instead, we recognized that, as is the case with most worthwhile things in our walks to class, these crucial battles are often uphill. And still, we never forgot that we must, and do in fact, dedicate ourselves to asking these questions. This is ultimately why it is so tremendously inspiring to be part of a community in which this charge has been taken up every day by students and faculty alike. Much like us jumbos, Wendell Phillips recognized that we are not mere scholars. We are instead scholars in a republic. That is, our scholarship does not stop at the walls of the academy, but instead bleeds out into every component of public life. It is worth noting that colleges and universities, like Tufts, since their very founding, have been acutely aware of societal gravitas, potential, and responsibility for problem solving that our educations uniquely afford us. Such was especially the case here at Tufts, the story of whose founding goes like so. As local lore has it, when a relative asked Charles Tufts what he would do with his land, and more specifically with that, quote, bleak hill over in Medford, Tufts replied, "I will put a light on it." In 1855, the Reverend Hosea Ballou II, the college's first president, remarked, "For if Tufts College is to be a source of illumination, as a beacon standing on a hill, where its light cannot be hidden, its influence will naturally work like all light. It will be diffusive." And so, class of 2025, as we embark on our next journeys, whether it be the beginnings of a career or continued studies, we are faced with a critical question. What has been the purpose of our 4 or so years on this beautiful, if at times bleak, hill over in Medford? If we're to listen to Phillips or Baloo or learn from the peers in our community, the answer to these questions is clearly in the potential of scholarship, in service, and the consequent marshaling of consciences, the eager fulfillment of our civic responsibilities. The recognition that we are especially and uniquely obligated to make the world a better and more hospitable place. To the great pleasure of our first president, Tufts has so clearly served as the diffusive source of illumination it had at its origin sought to be, with each scholar and student who walks this campus keeping the light alive. Now, as we depart this place, it is our task to carry that light with us, wherever it is that we may go next. For as Tufts students, our wonderful gift and purpose has been to learn. As Tufts alumni, we now have a responsibility to continue using this learning for the greater good. And just how lucky are we to do exactly that? Thank you.